It is Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026, and this is the Neural Deep Dive. I'm Roxy Stone, and I'm the one who actually reads the white papers while these boys just look at the pictures.
I'm Leonard Cooper.
This is Vector Kane.
You're listening to Alyssa Montgomery. We have a great show for you today.
Now, if you already caught today's Neural Daily, welcome back. This is our weekly deep dive, a separate Wednesday-only release where we actually use our brains.
Speak for yourself, Roxy. I'm still recovering from yesterday's episode. We were talking about the power grid literally melting under the weight of these data centers and Anthropic's billion-dollar shadow library payout.
Well, clear your schedule, Leonard, because while the Daily covered the headlines this morning, we need to spend this entire hour on the Behemoth that just landed on our doorstep from Beijing.
We are talking about Kimi K3, the absolute unit of a model that just crossed the Rubicon for local LLMs.
It's certainly a significant architectural shift, Vector. Moving from the dense models we've seen to a 2.8 trillion parameter mixture of expert setup, well, it's mathematically delicious.
It's terrifying, sweetie. Here's the deal. Moonshot AI just dropped the first Open 3T class model, and the tech specs read like a biological warfare manual. Efficient, invasive, and totally overwhelming.
2.8 trillion parameters. I remember when we thought a billion was a big deal. Now we're looking at something 75% larger than DeepSeek V4 Pro. It's like going from a moped to a starship overnight.
It's not just the size, Leonard. It's the velocity. See, technically, even though it has nearly 3 trillion parameters under the hood, it's only activating about 50 billion per token. Right, Alyssa?
That's correct, Vector. It uses a very aggressive 16 of 896 routing strategy. Effectively, they've decoupled the knowledge capacity of the model from the compute cost at inference.
Which means it's smarter than my husband Barney after a triple espresso, but it runs on a budget that won't bankrupt a small nation. I mean, matching Claude 4.8 and GPT 5.5 while being open weight? The Pentagon must be having a collective aneurysm right now.
I told you guys, local AI is winning. I was literally telling Veronica during our last mediation session that the ROI on proprietary models is basically a low-value legacy process now.
Oh, I'm sure she loved hearing that while she was taking your favorite chair, sweetie.
Ouch. Huh. But seriously, we've got to break down how this Kimi K3 actually works, because 896 experts, that's a crowded room. That's more experts than I had ex-wives.
Well, the historical context is actually quite elegant, if I may. We've been stuck in this tension between dense scaling, where you just add layers and hope for the best, and the economic reality of serving these things to millions of people.
It's systems thinking, Alyssa. It's like evolution. You don't use your entire brain to tie your shoes, right? You route to the specific neural pathways optimized for shoe tying.
Sort of, Vector, though the brain is a bit more complex than a latent space router. But what Moonshot did with the stable latent MOE framework is really the secret sauce here. By having nearly 900 experts, but only pulling 16 for any given task, they've created a model that is essentially a library of specialists.
A library of specialists who are currently eating the lunch of every American AI lab. According to the briefing we got, this thing matches the top-tier frontier models on reasoning and agentic benchmarks. I'm talking about actual complex planning, not just reciting poetry about a toaster.
Hey, leave the toasters out of this. Vector's still got toast chain PTSD.
It was a decentralized heating platform, Leonard. But look, the thing that's literally blowing my mind is the decoding throughput. They're claiming a 6.3x increase for a 1 million token context window? That is insane. That is technically incredible.
That's the KDA vector, Kimi Delta Attention, and the attention residuals. Traditional multi-head latent attention, MLA for those of us who live in the kernel, usually hits a wall when you scale the context window that large. The memory requirements go quadratic.
Goodness! Speak English for the people who aren't currently dating a Linux distro, Alyssa.
Oh, well, it basically means the model can remember the first page of a massive book while it's reading the last page, without its brain exploding. It handles long-form context more efficiently than anything we've seen.
So it's like a shock jock who can remember a caller's name from 3 hours ago? That's a superpower in my old line of work.
It's a superpower for corporate espionage, Leonard. Think about it. You dump a decade's worth of internal emails into this thing, and it can find the exact moment the CEO decided to cook the books. And since the weights are dropping on July 27th under a modified MIT license, well, anyone with a decent GPU cluster can play God.
Exactly. This is the democratization of intelligence. We're talking about moving away from these centralized, gated gardens. It's a total market correction of the Silicon Valley hegemony.
You are so cute when you're being naive, Vector. You think Beijing is releasing open weights because they love democratization? No, sweetie. They're doing it to wreck the profit margins of OpenAI and Google. It's strategic sabotage, and it is beautiful to watch.
It's like the old pirate radio days. If you can't get the license to broadcast, you just build a bigger antenna and drown everyone else out.
I suppose there's some truth to that, Roxy. If you look at the pricing, $3 per million input tokens, 15 for output, it puts immense pressure on the closed labs. Why pay premium for Claude Fable 5 if Kimi K3 gets you 98% of the way there for a fraction of the price?
And it's not even just about the price, right? It's about the control. If I'm running K3 locally, I don't have some safety team in San Francisco looking over my shoulder every time I want to calculate the optimal protein to meal replacement ratio for my biohacking.
Or every time you want to figure out how to bypass your ex-wife's alimony payments.
That is technically not a use case I've explored yet.
Man, I love this show. All right, let's get into the weeds here, because I want to know about these 896 experts. How do they even decide who gets to talk?
It's a routing mechanism based on the latent representation of the input. Each expert is essentially a subnetwork that has been specialized during training. When a token comes in, the router assigns it to the 16 experts that have the highest affinity for that specific type of data.
So it's like a very fast, very efficient version of The Price is Right? The tokens just find the door that has the best prize behind it?
Well, sort of. But it's more about the gradient descent during training, ensuring that each expert actually learns something unique. In the past, MOE models struggled with expert collapse, where only a few experts would do all the work while the others just sat there.
Like a government office.
Or like those new companies from the firm.
Hey.
Exactly. But Moonshot used a set of auxiliary losses to force the model to use all 896 experts. It creates a much denser knowledge base. You can have one expert that's just a master of Python decorators and another that's a specialist in 18th century French poetry.
Which is perfect for all those poets who need to automate their back-end development. I mean, goodness, who is this actually for?
It's for everyone, Roxy. It's for agents. The reasoning benchmarks on this thing are off the charts. We're talking about AI that can actually follow multi-step instructions without getting distracted by its own metaphorical tale.
I'll believe it when it can handle Barney's chore chart without crashing. Speaking of things that are built right, I think we need to talk about what's happening under the hood of this actual show.
Oh, you mean the man behind the curtain?
Exactly. This show isn't magic, it's engineering. Eric built our entire stack, from research agents to vocal synthesizers, which requires massive compute. To keep us online, please like, subscribe, and sign up for a free Patreon trial at patreon.com/neuralnetworkmedia today. Your support makes this possible.
Amen to that. Without the fans, we're just four people shouting in a basement filled with server racks and empty energy drink cans.
It's a decentralized community, Leonard. But seriously, go to the Patreon. We need more GPUs.
We always need more GPUs, sweetie. Now, let's get into the hacker's corner for the real nerds. And I say that with love, Alyssa.
Oh, I take it as a compliment.
I know you do. Tell me, if I want to run a 2.8 trillion parameter model at home, do I need to buy a small power plant, or can I just plug it into the wall next to Barney's treadmill?
Well, you're certainly not running the full uncompressed weights on a laptop. 2.8 trillion parameters in FP16 would be about 5.6 terabytes of VRAM. Even the big labs struggle with that.
5 terabytes? I don't even have that much space for my classic movie collection.
However, this is where quantization and sparsity come in. Because only 50 billion parameters are active per token, the actual compute requirements for inference are much lower. If you use 4-bit quantization, you can get the model size down significantly.
I've seen people on the local LLM forums talking about running K3 on a cluster of Mac Studios. If you've got 2 terabytes of unified memory across a few machines, you can actually serve this thing with reasonable tokens per second.
Yes, and the KDA, Kimi Delta Attention, really helps with the context memory. In traditional models, the KV cache, the memory of the conversation, gets huge. With AttenRes and the Delta Attention mechanisms, they're essentially compressing the attention signals. It's a very clever way of avoiding the linear growth of the cache.
It's like a zip file for your thoughts. I remember zipping files back in the 90s to fit them on a floppy disk. We've come full circle.
Goodness, Leonard, don't start reminiscing about floppy disks. We'll be here all night. Alyssa, talk to me about the modified MIT license. Is this actually open, or is there a kill switch somewhere in Beijing?
It's an interesting legal hybrid. The modified MIT license for K3 allows for commercial use up to a certain revenue threshold, but it explicitly forbids using the model to train other models that would compete with Moonshot. It's also subject to acceptable use policies that are, well, let's just say they are aligned with certain regional regulations.
Every license has baggage, but the fact that the weights are out there means they can be audited. They can be fine-tuned. The community's already working on an uncensored K3 variant that strips out the guardrails.
Which is exactly what I was saying about malware, sweetie. You give everyone the world's most powerful reasoning engine and no guardrails, and suddenly everyone is a 1337 hacksaw. According to several security blogs I've been tracking, the jailbreakability of MOE models is actually higher because you can target specific experts.
Whoa, really? You can just, poison the ethics expert and leave the exploit expert wide open?
Theoretically, yes. If you can identify which experts handle the safety routing, you can manipulate the activation functions to bypass them. It's a much more complex attack surface than a dense model.
Interesting. I mean, horrific. Totally horrific.
You're smiling, Roxy. Why are you smiling when you say that?
I'm just thinking about the chaos ROI, Leonard. It's fascinating. But speaking of chaos, let's pivot to the global picture. We talked about the model war yesterday, but this feels like a nuclear test. The US-China divide just got a lot wider, didn't it?
It's a total acceleration. The US labs are trying to lock everything down with these safety frameworks and government oversight, and China is just throwing the doors wide open. It's the Sputnik moment of the 21st century.
It does create a difficult balance for the Pentagon and the Department of Commerce. If you restrict open weights in the US to protect safety, you just hand the entire open source ecosystem to international competitors. It's a tactical disadvantage.
Exactly, Alyssa. It's like when I used to manage the micro lab. You can't stop the bacteria from evolving. You just have to make sure you have a better antibiotic. Right now, the U.S. is trying to pass a law to make bad bacteria illegal, while China is giving it away for free.
I bet Buck and the guys over at the High Road would have a field day with this. Our sister show on freight and logistics. They're always talking about supply chains, and AI is basically the new oil for the logistical world. If you've got a 2.8 trillion parameter model running your fleet, you're winning.
Right. Imagine a trucking fleet where every single agent is an expert at a different regional traffic pattern or weather system. Latching onto the Ma-E architecture is basically the only way to scale that kind of intelligence.
Uh-huh. Or you just hire people who know how to drive, Vector. But I digress. Let's talk about the economic displacement. If K3 is this good and this cheap, what happens to the mid-tier models? What happens to things like Claude 3.5 Sonnet?
It's a squeeze play. The mid-tier models are usually priced for efficiency, but Kimi K3 offers frontier-level reasoning at mid-tier costs. At the end of the day, the profit margins for companies like Anthropic or even OpenAI's smaller models are going to get shredded.
It's a race to the bottom on price and a race to the top on parameters. It's beautiful, messy capitalism.
It's only capitalism if you're actually trying to make a profit, Leonard. If your goal is just to destroy your opponent's business model, it's something else entirely. It's warfare.
But warfare that benefits the consumer, right? I mean, my toast chain idea might have actually worked if I had an agentic model like K3 to handle the smart contract negotiation between the bread and the heating element.
Oh, don't make me come over there, Vector. If you mention that toaster one more time, I am going to route your breakfast to the nearest expert in garbage disposal.
Okay. I'm just saying the velocity is there.
Man, I love the energy in here today. All right, let's talk about the long-term implications. If we're at 2.8 trillion now, where are we in 6 months? 10 trillion? 50 trillion?
There are physical limitations to the scaling, Leonard. Power, mainly. As we discussed yesterday, the grid is already under strain. But the MOE architecture is the way around that limit. It's about being smarter, not just bigger.
It's about being more efficient at being dangerous. Think about the 1 million token context window again. That's not just a book. That's an entire database. That's every piece of legislation in a state, every medical record in a hospital.
It's like having a copy of yourself that doesn't need to sleep or eat or, God forbid, chew its food.
I don't know, Vector. I kind of like chewing. Crystal makes these amazing raw food bowls that...
No one cares about your raw food bowls, Leonard. We are talking about the end of human intellectual monopoly. Goodness.
I suppose it is a bit of a pick-me moment for humanity, isn't it? We're all competing to show the AI how useful we still are. But honestly, if you can't handle a little technical evolution, maybe you just aren't logical enough to stay in the game.
Oh, shots fired.
I love it. Total anarchy in the basement. All right, we've covered the weights, we've covered the experts, and we've covered why Vector is still single.
I am not, well, technically it's a market correction phase.
It's a liquidation sale, sweetie. Everything must go.
Anyway, let's wrap this thing up with a final look at the modified MIT license. Should we be worried about the data they used to train it? Was it shadow libraries like Anthropic?
Most likely. To get to 2.8 trillion parameters, you need a corpus of text that exceeds the entirety of the clean internet. They're scraping everything. Pirated books, code repositories, private message boards that weren't as private as people thought. It's the data vacuum phase of AI.
And since it's coming out of China, those U.S. copyright lawsuits mean exactly zero. It's a total end run around the American legal system. It's a middle finger wrapped in a white paper.
And I am here for it. Bring on the chaos. Bring on the K3.
Spoken like a man who has nothing left to lose in the final split.
Oh, stop it. Barney's going to be so confused when I try to explain this to him later. I'll just tell him the computer got a lot smarter and he needs to do more laundry.
That's the spirit. All right, that's our deep dive into Kimi K3. It's big, it's sparse, and it's probably reading your emails right now.
It's definitely reading Vector's emails, but it's probably bored.
My emails are full of high-value insights, Roxy.
Of course they are, sweetie. Of course they are.
That does it for today's deep dive into the 2.8 trillion parameter behemoth that is Kimi K3, the model that's proving that open isn't just a word, it's a weapon. We covered the MOE architecture, the KDA attention magic, and why the global AI race just shifted into high gear.
Bye.
Peace.
See ya.
Stay wild, folks.